You are Ronan folks. My name is Jen. I am a anthropologist and public health researcher. Most of the time I work in India, although I've been working for the state of Colorado for a little bit. So yeah, I think I have got 10 minutes to sort of blast through. This work is topic of my dissertation and also a book manuscript that I am working on right now. You'll also have to forgive me. I am mostly winging it because I have not been able to practice much this week. So I'll just go ahead and jump in. So this is To Clean Mother India, Caste and Politics During the Clean India Mission, also known as the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Okay, there we go. So this was fun. I actually had to update my numbers from previous slides. So I'll be talking about sanitation. Sanitation, how I'm going to define it for this presentation, is the safe disposal of human fecal waste. So the idea that you can take your human fecal waste and contain it and treat it so it doesn't get released into the environment or your community to make people sick or to cause pollution. India is a massive country, and historically has had a massive sanitation problem. Numbers have improved in recent years, so I apologize about the size of my labels on these axes. On the far left is 2000, and on the far right is 2020. So the most recent numbers that I could find says that only about 71% of the population has access to basic or safely managed sanitation. That means the remainder, which is these yellow, orange, various degrees of yellow, or orange, and orange, have limited sanitation, which means they may not, they might just have access to a public or community to oil it. It's unimproved, which can be anything from just sort of a bucket to a hole in the ground that's not really cleaning or containing or treating the waste. And 15% of the population is still defecating in the open, meaning in fields or in open spaces in the city. So this causes a lot of issues for health and sanitation. So the Clean India mission, the Swachh Bharat mission, was launched in 2014 by the current Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. He's been recently elected, and he's standing up on the ramparts of the Red Fort in Delhi, and he, in this long, sweeping speech about all of his vision for what he's going to do with his time in office. And this vision encompasses everything from bolstering the IT sector to supporting, to tackling gender issues, to trying to encourage manufacturing. He drops in the middle of, after independence, after so many years of independence, when we stand at the threshold of 1.5 decades of the 21st century, do we still want to live in filthiness? And in this speech, he promised to make India clean by October 2nd, 2019, which would be Gandhi's 150th birthday. And in his definition of clean, included sanitation, included trash and dust. It was a massive campaign. So much money went into it, so much PR, so much publicity. And there was a full pledge that they would have school children and government workers say. And one of the lines of this was, "It is our duty to keep Mother India clean by removing the dirt." And while my interest in sanitation initially kind of started with a public health aspect, the more I looked into it and became more interested in is, what does dirt mean for different actors in India, and what does it mean to remove the dirt, and who is defining what dirt is. So I talked about the Prime Minister Modi. He comes from an Indian political party called the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP. And this is a far-right Hindutva party, meaning they believe in Hindu supremacy. And it's associated with a history of violence against groups like Muslims and lower castes, primarily Muslims. If anyone is familiar with or recalls the 2002 in the state of Gujarat, when the now Prime Minister was Chief Minister of that state, there was a massive massacre of Muslims that, you can do a whole dissertation on that alone, but in best case scenario, the chief minister did not apologize or try to stop the massacre. Worst case scenario, actively incited it. So this is a party that is defining filth and dirt in terms of people, not just a public health idea. A lot of groups that work in the India mission are non-governmental organizations or NGOs, and this government has a contested relationship that created a lot sort of this underlying tension between the government and civil society, in which there is a lot of concern of, if we are not doing the correct things, if we are not agreeing with this mission, if we're not praising it, then there's a potential for our organization to have real consequences. In the top left, is a picture of a lawyer who has been persecuted by the government for trying to hold Modi and his colleagues accountable for the Gujarat massacres. But if we go back and step away from the current political situation, we can also think about sanitation as having just a very long, complicated history. When we're talking about sanitation, it's not just toilets. It is entwined with this colonial past. The number of, when the British talk about India, and they would talk about India when they were colonizing it, so they were justifying their control of India, and they were working to control India through sanitation measures, through ostensibly public health campaigns. There's just this long history about, talking about India as sort of inherently filthy. So there's this, when we're talking about modern day sanitation, there's a long history of that. There's a long past. And I fully acknowledge that, I have to negotiate this as a white person working on sanitation in India. There's a colonial past I have to reckon with. Sanitation is also entwined with, highly entwined with gender and women's rights. So there was a lot of the discourse around sanitation ends up talking about women's bodies and protecting women and protecting them from violence. And sometimes this is a potentially productive conversation to talk about women's violence, but sometimes conversations about sanitation end up justifying isolating women and preventing them from going outside. The solution to gender-based violence shouldn't be keeping women inside. It should be stopping gender-based violence. Sanitation is also associated with some of the lowest caste groups. So sometimes called Dalits, or the oppressed, amongst the Dalits, who are the lowest on the caste ladder. The lowest of the Dalits are those who deal with human fecal waste, sometimes called manual scavengers. Historically and And till today, you have communities and groups of people whose job it is to empty out dry latrines using nothing but hand tools and baskets. The men in this community are often employed to do the sewer work uh, with nothing but no protective equipment, no, it's not professionalized. And so again, entwined into this whole conversation about sanitation is who's going to be cleaning India, who's going to be making it clean, who are the communities that are going to be most affected by some of these efforts. And I went through that in like 7 minutes instead of 10. But overall, sort of closing up, my book and my work is really interested in looking at all of these different aspects of filth. Who gets to decide what plant cleanliness is, and who gets to decide what filth is in India? And what does that mean for the country going forward? So I'm going to just leave it there. And I am more than happy to keep talking at you all with questions. And thanks for listening to me monologue or ramble.